explore 9 key parts that reveal how Malaysia traded with the world. Let's begin with the first segment, Malaysia overall trade performance.
In 2020, we can see trade plunge. The pandemic shut borders, crossed supply chains, and pushed away Malaysia to its lowest trade level. By 2021, factories start to reopen and demand return. Trade slowly stabilized. This is the first sign of recovery. In 2022, Malaysia rose stronger. Trade surged, driven by global demand. And from 2023 to 2025, growth continued steadily, especially in the middle and end of each year. Across this period, one pattern repeats. Trade climbs from March to August, and February remains the lowest due to holidays and the shorter month. As the year closes, the right turn changes. October rises as factories increase production and global buyers restock for year-end demand. But November may dip slightly due to slower global demand. But in December, it will increase back because businesses rush to complete orders, clear inventories, and meet final export deadlines. For 2025, with an average growth of about 2.2% per month, from shutdown to steady ascent, Malaysia trade performance show resilience, recovery, and rising confidence.
Now that we have seen the overall picture of Malaysia trade performance, let's look deeper and understand about Malaysia export and re-export patterns.
In the next chapter of Malaysia's trade story, we look at the goods we produce and the goods that pass through our borders. From 2020 to 2025, domestic exports follow a steady upward climb. Starting low during the pandemic, they grow stronger each year, driven mainly by the electrical and electronics sector. As the world recovers, Malaysia production engine switch back on, and demand will rise. But another storyline runs alongside it: re-export. From Rm 8 billion in 2020 to almost Rm 38 billion in 2025, the growth is fast and dynamic. The line may jump and dip, but the message is clear. Malaysia is becoming a key transit point in global trade. To see where the story is heading, we look at the growth rate. Domestic export grew modestly from August to September, giving a calm 0.77 rise, projecting a gentle climb towards year-end. For re-export, the surge was too sharp to predict, so using steadier 6% bet in this chapter, two-term action. Domestic export goes strong and stable, while re-export rise quickly, marking Malaysia's growing role in international supply chains.
Knowing about export and re-export pattern is only half of the story. To move forward, we also need to know what Malaysia relies on. So now, let's explore about Malaysia import by end use from 2020 to 2025.
Produces three key categories: capital goods, consumption goods, and intermediate goods. But among them, one stands out as the clear leader: intermediate goods. Throughout 2020 to 2025, intermediate goods record the highest values, rising from around 30 billion to 72 billion. This reveals how heavily Malaysia relies on imported raw materials and components, especially for manufacturing. When factories are active, imports rise, and from early 2024 to middle 2025, these categories show a strong upward climb, a sign of growing production activity. Capital goods also rise steadily, climbing from around 10 billion to nearly 50 billion by middle 2025. This suggests that industries are upgrading their technology and expanding production capacity. Consumption goods remain the lowest and most stable. These include everyday items like food and household products. Taken together, the trend shows one message: Malaysia imports raw materials, process them locally, and export higher value products, especially in electronic and electrical sector. As the year approaches its end, imports are expected to keep rising. Factories will rush to complete orders, companies stock up on materials, and demand increases ahead of Christmas and New Year. If global conditions stay stable and the ringgit strengthens, these upward imports will likely continue until the end of 2025.
Imports show what Malaysia needs, but our export sector show what Malaysia offers to the world. So, to know more about it, let's explore Malaysia's major export in 2025.
Leading the story is the electrical and electronic sector. chips and components used in phones, computer, and AI systems worldwide. Singapore and the US are major buyers, but relying heavily on the sector is risky because if global tech demand drops, Malaysia's export income falls. As 10, petroleum comes next, mostly exported to ASEAN countries like Indonesia. But its value is unstable because global oil price rise and fall due to supply chain, politics and market shock. The next one, Malaysia remains a major palm oil producer with India as a key buyer. But the sector faces pressure to shift to higher value, sustainable product because the world is pushing for greener standards and stricter environmental rules. Malaysia also exports machinery used in factories in Singapore, Indonesia, the US, and China. This helping drive regional industrial growth. Chemical products flow to China, Singapore, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Together, these export sectors are not just trade contributors. They are engines of GDP, fueling manufacturing, jobs, and national income.
This export sector drive Malaysia upward. But what about Malaysia industry that rely on foreign goods? To know the answer, let's take a look at Malaysia major import sector in 2025.
Malaysia's biggest import is electrical and electronic products from China, Singapore, and Taiwan. We import these parts because our own electrical and electronic industry relies on foreign-made chips and components for assembly. Next is machinery and equipment, mainly from China. These machines run our factory, automation systems, and industrial products. Malaysia imports refined petroleum because our refineries cannot fully meet demand for specific fuel types. Next, Malaysia also buys chemicals from China, Singapore, and South Korea. We also import food and agriculture inputs from China, Indonesia, India, and Australia. This happens because some items cannot be grown locally. Others are cheaper to import.
As we know, import tell us who we need and export tell us who need us. Thus, let's take a look at Malaysia export destination in 2025.
Story begins with just across the border, Singapore, Malaysia's biggest export partner and the gateway where our electronic machinery and chemicals move onward to the world. Because of close ties, both countries work to keep border fast and efficient. The United States is Malaysia's second pillar, a market that buys our most advanced products, semiconductors, medical devices, and high-tech components. To stay in this market, Malaysia aligns many standards with US technology rules. However, when the US tech sector slows, Malaysia will get the impact immediately. Then, there's China, a giant market for Malaysia. Through ASEAN partnership and industrial agreement, Malaysia keeps its access to China strong. Finally, we arrive at Hong Kong, the global trading hub where Malaysia electronic machinery and even gold pass through before reaching markets around the world. To keep this flow efficient, Malaysia maintains policies that support smooth export through Hong Kong's financial network.
Lastly, Taiwan. Taiwan becomes a major export destination because its high-tech industries rely on Malaysia's electronic components, making both countries part of the same global supply chain.
Despite destinations do more than buy Malaysia products, they shape our policies, influence our strategy, and define Malaysia's place in the world.
This destination shaped Malaysia's global reach. And now, we turn to the other side of the relationship, the country that supplies Malaysia essential goods.
Let's begin with China, Malaysia's biggest import sources. From electronics to steel to machinery, China supplies the parts that keep our industry alive. Without this import, many Malaysia factories will simply stop. But relying too heavily on one giant also means our supply chain shakes whenever China's market faces uncertainty. Next, we cross the causeway to Singapore, our closest partner, and the gateway for refined food, chemicals, and we export machinery. This import power Malaysia's transport, energy, and industrial operations every single day. Then we head to Taiwan, the source of high-tech components that drive Malaysia electrical and electronic sector chips, semiconductor, and precision parts from Taiwan are the backbone of our biggest export industry. Our fourth chapter brings us to the US, where Malaysia imports advanced machinery, aerospace parts, and medical devices. Finally, we arrive in Japan, a long-standing partner known for precision tools, automotive components, and high-tech machinery. These imports help Malaysia maintain world-class manufacturing quality.
Beyond individual countries, Malaysia regional ties also matter. Within ASEAN, partnership and agreement reshape the flow of trade. Therefore, let's get to know Malaysian trade relation with ASEAN FTA nations.
Let's begin with Malaysia's largest FTA partner. Through ACFTA, tariff falls and trade becomes faster and cheaper. Palm oil, chemicals, and machinery flow more easily into China, while Malaysia imports affordable materials and electronics. Then we move to Japan, a partner known for precision and high-tech excellence. Through AJCEP, Japan supplies machinery, automotive parts, and industrial equipment while buying LNG and electrical components from Malaysia. Next, we go to South Korea. AKFTA boosts trade in electronics, rubber products, chemicals, and automotive materials. Korean companies help Malaysia factories stay competitive in fast-moving industry. Next, we head west to India, a major buyer of Malaysia's palm oil and chemicals. Reduced tariff and make Malaysian goods more affordable in India, opening access to one of the world's largest markets. Finally, let's go to Australia. Through ANZFTA, Malaysia imports dairy and raw materials at lower cost, while exporting electronics and manufactured goods. Together, this FTA opens doors for Malaysia to lowering costs and expanding market.
Well, Malaysia own states are the foundations of our export power. Now, let's uncover how each state contributed in 2024.
Our journey begins in Pulau Pinang, Malaysia's strongest exporter, contributing over one-third of the nation's exports. Penang is home to semiconductor giants and high-tech factories, making it the heart of Malaysia's electrical and electronic industry. Next, we move south to Johor, the second largest exporter, with its industrial zone, petrochemical hubs, and proximity to Singapore. Johor has become a major logistics and manufacturing center. Then, we arrive in Selangor, ranking third. Unlike Penang or Johor, Selangor's strength comes from diversity, aerospace, pharmaceuticals, electronics, logistics, and services. However, this wide mix makes Selangor more resilient to economic shock. In East Malaysia, Sarawak contributes nearly 8% of national exports, driven mainly by LNG and other resources-based industry. Its natural wealth make it a key player in energy exports. And finally, Kuala Lumpur, contributing a smaller 3.8% because its economy focuses more on services, finance, and headquarter operations than manufacturing.